Hello, Broadway fans. I am Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby here with Jared Grimes from the new revival of Funny Girl. The first time we've seen Funny Girl on Broadway in quite a while. We've had to wait for a revival. And Jared, when I sat down in the theater, you could feel this rumble of excitement through the audience because I think people are really ready for this show and excited to have it back. What has your experience been like with audience reaction?
What's funny is as soon as you brought that up, the very first preview we had, and I've never done this before. Like as soon as I walked out on stage, like I was just like, oh wow, okay, so this is the first time everybody's experiencing Eddie Ryan being African American. Like it actually, like it never really like registered to me in the rehearsal process or just throughout the creative process. And then in the first preview, I was like, wow, not that I ever thought it was going to be a problem, but I knew that that was going to be a very stark difference from what people have traditionally seen with this character or remember from, the original, if they were around 58 years ago. And then after that show, I was like totally good. I was just like, I was totally good. My experience with the piece has been utterly just grateful to come off of the 2 years that we've come off of, and to be able to step in the theater and to make people laugh and love, and even cry in certain instances, through the joy of the arts, dancing, singing, and just loving on one another on stage. It's been a great experience. So, Funny Girl is definitely uh, a proud moment in my life and in my career, and the fact that I get to give a fresh take on the buddy character or the best friend character. It just every night I walk on stage, it just gives me so much joy.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about that too, because he is sometimes seen as, the best friend character. But I often find Eddie to be part of what's tragic about Funny Girl is that he's could be more than a buddy. He could be more than a best friend. And maybe if he and Fanny got together, there wouldn't have been such heartbreak. What is your sort of take on that? What do you do just to flesh him out?
Well, it's the classic case, which I know everybody can relate to, is where everybody has a best friend or a buddy, or even somebody that they consider like, like their brother or a sister. When in the first instances, they may have been interested in that person. And for whatever, reason, it didn't work out that way. And their paths joined together as more of a bond and a friendship. And yeah, it's I think everybody has been through that. So I know from the audience, and I can feel that too every night. Everybody can kind of relate to, when I get my face cracked after really trying to go for it, and then all of a sudden the next best thing, because you do love this person as a person, is being there for them, win, lose, or draw. Um, and so that love, that interest never really goes away. And it just morphs into strength. Uh, and you can be strong for somebody in so many different ways. You can be strong in a love or a marriage or a relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, what have you, or you can be strong in those same ways as more of a rock, a ride or die, someone who will always be there no matter what. So yeah, it's tragic, but it's also amazing at the same time, because I feel like sometimes in the world, when you can't have someone in your life in a certain way, then too many times we cancel them, or we write them off, or we ghost them, or we do that kind of thing. We kind of pout about it. And in Fanny Bryce and Eddie Ryan's case, they stick together, and they just, they go toe to toe with whatever obstacles are in front of them each day.
That is very well put. And I do want to back up for a moment because you are an incredible tap dancer. You get a lot of moments to showcase that in the show. And I read that many moons ago were tap dancing in the subway. Uh, which what is that experience like? What do you take away from that experience that you can apply to a Broadway stage?
Ah, well, I was having a hard time getting people to put me on stage when I got to New York in 2001. So I was like, well, I wanted to do this show, and typically people will call you to be in a show, and I was calling people to try to be. I was like, hey, if anybody cancels, or if there's any room on the roster, I'd love to perform. And the dream would have been to come to New York and, people who knew a little bit about my name to be like, hey, come be in the show. And that just wasn't happening. And so I was just like frustrated. I felt like I had so much to offer. And, some of the outlets that I thought were going to put me on, just for whatever reason, they weren't able to. I know there's a pecking order and you got to kind of earn your stripes and everything like that. So I was just like, all right, cool. Well, I'm not going to sit in my apartment or in my dorm and just not perform. So, my buddies, William Johnson, like my big brother, he's this phenomenal bucket drummer. And he was notorious for going down in the subways and just playing buckets with some of his other bucket drumming playing friends or just other musicians. And even before I got to college, I had a huge friendship with him. And so I would come up to New York and audition for stuff, and we would go down there from time to time. But it wasn't like when I actually got here and was actually, when I actually become a New Yorker, we would go down there and we'd be down there for hours. And the thing that I have always taken from that was just the craft at its rawest form. I mean, I'm on different subway platforms, different sidewalks, and just me and my bucket drummer or a couple of my tap dancing friends on one board. And the objective was to get people to stop and watch us, when we all know New Yorkers don't have time to even watch themselves half the time. You know what I mean? Once they get off that train, they're either late or they're on time, but they feel like they're late. So they're always running somewhere. And to get a couple hundred people to stop or take time out of their day or out of their schedule to watch, me do what I loved in its rawest form on a board in a subway was the objective. And, I took that to heart, and it really gave me that can't stop, won't stop mentality, that true love for the craft, that yearning to bring someone joy even when they don't want it or they least expect it. And endurance at that too, because it's a certain type of endurance that you have to have in order to keep that up for an entire day or a few hours in a subway on concrete, which the board lies on. And so, before I knew it, I was on stage, and I mean, I could, with my band, I could do an hour and a half, 2 hour set by myself, and it like would go by like that, and I wouldn't even feel it. And I was like, where do I get all this energy from? My parents would be like, it's because you ADD. And I'll be like, wait, I was like, you got too much energy. You always had too much energy as a kid, which, that also comes into it. But it also, a lot of it comes from just, being down in the subway and just closing your eyes and just reaching for the stars in the craft that you love, opening your eyes, and hopefully people would be there watching.
Wow, that's amazing. That it just seems like if you're doing that, tap to me seems like such a personal form of expression, and you're kind of improving and putting your own things in there. Is there room to do any of that, like when the choreography for Funny Girl is being created and you have a tap number? Because so many of them are solos for you. Is there room to put your own specialties in there?
Yeah, always. I mean, tap and jazz go hand in hand, and we all know that the genre of jazz music is built around improvisation. So working with Adi Deli Cassell, she the first thing she asked me when it came to Eddie's solo and some of Eddie's moments in the show, she was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was just like, I had taken her class when I was 14 years old. She was one of my first mentors here in New York City when I was driving back and forth to take classes with her. And so I was like, I fully trust you. Maybe some other people I might not. Maybe I would have answered that question. They'd be like, what do you want to do? I was like, I'm gonna do my own thing every night. We'll figure it out. Tuesday will be different from Wednesday. Thursday will be different from Friday. But with her, I trust her so much. She's one of the icons of tap, one of the legends of tap, one of the greatest tap masters of all time. And so I was just like, I'm down to, rock whatever your vision is. And so she had the vision of, John Bubble, Sammy Davis Jr., Baby Lawrence, to name a few of these iconic tap masters in the early 1900s, who didn't get their just due because they were African-American at the time. But they were the building blocks for, opening doors for me to even be in this interview today. So once she told me that, I was like, all right, let's rock. She started laying down the material. And, my process with learning choreography, first is to try to really, devour what I'm given. And then as it starts to settle in, then I start to play, then I start to change things up a little bit, then I start to add things. And then, even something like, what I call like a brain glitch, where because I'm so used to listening to music in so many different ways, like my brain will jump in the fray of someone else's choreography and be like, hey, you should do this. And sometimes you can't control it and it'll pop up in the choreography. And then, what may seem like, okay, well, he didn't do, the exact step that she gave him. I call it the remix or the reglitch, because those are like the beautiful moments where, you can do no wrong. What may be perceived as a misstep or a mistake is actually, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I'm out there free and just willing to surrender to the music, to the choreography, and to her vision. And then what comes with that, improvisation is laced all throughout that. And then some days it might not be. Some days I'll do every single step that she gives me, but I might feel differently about it on a particular, given night. That gives it a different style. That might be a little more Sammy one night, might be a little bit more Bill Robinson, one night. It might be a little bit more Gregory Hines one night. So it's just there's no way that it'll be the same every night. And for that, we can call his entire experience in the show, improvisationally laced if we want
Mhm.
to.
Yeah. How does that work in a number like Who Taught Her Everything She Knows? Because it just seems like you and Jane Lynch are having an absolute blast up there. What is it like to share the stage with her during that number?
It's Jane Lynch. Oh my goodness. I mean, she's a comedic legend. Sometimes like during the number, I'm like looking at her and I'm like, I'm just like, that's freaking Jane Lynch. So, and then just to create with her and Who Taught Her Everything She Knows is it's the pure joy. I knew I had the number with her, but it just every night we step on stage, like I'm always laughing at something that Jane does. And then I'm always trying to throw things in there that, Jane might not have seen, in the day prior with the performance. And we just have fun. I mean, the song is broken down into like sections. Like I have my section, she has her section, and then we have our duet section. So, in my section, there's little, things that I add every night stylistically because, it's not just a tap number for me. It's more movement based. So, I kind of get my full plate of just movement and tap in the show, and I can kind of channel, I can channel that Fred Astaire, I can channel that, Buster Keaton, Chaplin, I can channel the Nicholas brothers in that number a little bit, which to me is just the fun of movement without tap dancing. It's so much fun because I can do whatever I want to do. I can really do. I mean, I've been given a structure, I've been given choreography, but when the music is going and you're having such a good time, just what you did on Tuesday might not be what you want to do on Wednesday. You know what I'm saying? So it could be a hand flick, it could be me looking at somebody in the audience, it could be the slide of a foot. And the scene that Jane and I had prior to that kind of gets the pot boiling for some of those ideas to come up because the genius that she is when it comes to just being an actress is she's always, the beats are rhythmic in different ways that are so real and not automated. And so it just really helps me create a platform for myself that allows me to kind of tell the story through movement in the same way, which is, not automated. It's real according to, what I'm feeling in that particular show. And then, I get to watch her do her half of the piece, which is hilarious. And then we both get to go, out there and have a good time. And, with Jane, she's way taller than me too. So I feel very Sammy Davis Jr. out there when I'm with her. But it's funny because she's so tall, but it just works. We work so well together, and it truly is one of my favorite moments in the show.
Yeah. Well, you're used to sharing the stage with some legends because I mean, before the shutdown, I saw you in A Soldier's Play, alongside David Allen Greer and Blair Underwood. What did you take away from that experience? Because that's not a musical. There's not tap dance to fall back on.
I loved it. A Soldier's Play was like, because I never really thought that I would do a straight play on Broadway, If it came to Broadway, I was like, oh, it's probably gonna be a musical because I feel like the industry likes to maximize what I have to offer when it comes to singing and dancing, and acting. And that's what Kenny Leon did. He was like, this is a straight play, but I'm gonna have I'm gonna have you doing as much as I possibly can without making it a musical.
Mm.
And so I was able to kind of craft my character, Private Smalls, into, kind of met me in the middle with who I am without it being, unbelievable. And just being able to share the stage with two gentlemen and David Allen Greer and Blair Underwood, who I've grown up watching on TV my entire life. It's funny because they're so down to earth. So the vision in my mind that I had of them was completely wiped away because they welcome you with open arms, and they're such masters of the craft, and they work so hard. Not that I would have expected anything otherwise, but sometimes you see these guys on TV growing up and you feel like they're going to descend on some cloud, or they're like walking on water, and really they're just as human as anybody else. But what makes them appear to walk on water is their dedication, discipline, and commitment to the craft. And that was just, it made me feel at home because I'm maniacal in my approach to how I study and to how I really crave excellence in acting or in singing and in dancing. And just to see that they're cut from the same cloth, they're the perfect inspirations for me to look up to. We got our text chain, our group chat. So sometimes I'm texting David Allen Greer. That's crazy. You know what I'm saying? Or Blair Underwood. So it's just it's surreal. And for me, being someone who aspires to continue to climb the ladder and to make them proud of my take on, the arts. That's something I really hold near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. Well, to quickly get into your craft a little bit before I have to let you go, what was it about tap specifically that made you gravitate towards that versus other, forms of dance?
It was loud. I
That's a good answer.
I was a kid. I just wanted to bang on pots. And, I had early on, I had an obsession with the drums. So all the cool kids at my church used to play the drums. And I was like, man, I want to be like the cool kids. So I would drum on pots, at home and stuff like that. And, my parents got me drum sets, but it just, for some reason, it wasn't really, I wasn't really able to connect it with the drums at church. It just wasn't cool enough. But then I was nervous to play the drums at church because the cool kids would be watching. So, my mom tried her hand in a pair of tap shoes, and it was like drumming. It just wasn't with, the actual drums. It gave me the same type of sensation that the drums did, but I actually thought it was cooler because the other cool kids didn't know how to do it. And my mom was my first dance teacher, but tap was her worst thing. She started me off, but after a couple of weeks, she was like, all right, I gotta give you to somebody else because I don't know what, she was more of a modern dancer, concert dancer, ballet and all that stuff. And so, yeah, it was just the activity. It was how many senses you were using at the same time. The genre of tap dance, outside of all the other ones, you're dancing, you're creating music, and you're dancing to the music that you're creating in the moment. So that's why people revere it sometimes, and they feel like it's the hardest genre, and people, usually walk the other way when they hear the word tap because they think it's so hard. But that's why I love it, because it's so complex, it's so complicated, and it's an art form that encodes itself into your DNA. You literally you're an instrument. You're an instrument, and you can play it in so many different ways. And as I said before, as you're playing it, you're dancing to the music that you're making. So that would be the equivalent of somebody playing the violin and dancing to it, which would seem weird. You could dance to it. I'm not saying that, there's probably vaudeville acts and people that have done that before. And I've actually seen, some people dancing to, a clarinet as they're playing it and all that stuff. But with tap dance, it's just a freedom that those shoes allow you. That, growing up watching all the greats on the Disney Channel at 4 a.m, because that's when they used to show all those old movies. I was just like, I gotta have it. I was like, I gotta have it. I don't care if the cool kids at church don't think it's cool, or if they don't do that, it's like all the same rhythms that they're making on the drums in church, I can do the same thing in those tap shoes. And so it chose me for those reasons. And, I chose it, and it was probably one of the first things in my entire life that I actually felt like, was me. Because I started tap dancing when I was 3. So, when you're that young, you're just trying a bunch of different things, and it just feels like you're trying a bunch of different things. But, I had my hands in a lot of stuff. I was a baseball, basketball, karate, science club. I was at this museum club, dance, hip hop, theater, vocal lessons. I was playing a little bit of piano, but like tap dance for some reason stuck out like a sore thumb amongst all those different activities. And, I've had this deep connection with it since I was 3. And I think that's because it comes with the responsibility. Because I say it all the time, tap dance to me is why this whole thing works the way it works. Broadway, Hollywood, all that stuff. Tap dance was the first hip hop. That was the thing that everybody wanted to do. And it was the thing that everybody had to do in order to get on a vaudeville stage or into Hollywood. Everybody was tap dancing. And so I like to think that it was one of those things that really was the foundation to what Hollywood is and what theater is, Broadway, most forms of entertainment. In the beginning, there was a tap dancer. That's why I hold it so close to my heart, because I have a responsibility to bring to life a lot of those tap dancers that were there in the beginning that nobody knows of. Some of these guys and gals, they couldn't, they had to put charcoal on their face and, don blackface in order to, entertain an audience. They wouldn't have dressing rooms. They weren't paid the same amount, and these guys and gals were the beginning. They were the very beginnings to making people love and laugh and just literally just go to another place during the Depression and the early 1900s and all this crazy war, all this crazy stuff. For some reason, tap dance was that thing that helped people escape. And the people that were there in the beginning, like I said, those same people that were helping people escape, they weren't really given their just due. So I think, I knew that at an early age when I was 3 years old. I was like, man, it's not only fun, not only what the cool kids can't do, but I was like, there's a responsibility. There's a worthiness. There's a strength. There's a lineage that comes with this. And even at 3, I might not have known exactly what that was, but I felt it every time I put on a pair of tap shoes. And so every time I walk out onto a stage or onto a subway platform, when I was in the subways, even just before this interview, something, spoke to me, and I got up and started working on a step. It just, when it chooses you, it's the greatest habit, the greatest obsession that you could ever have, for the most amazing reasons that have to do with giving people a voice that once had no voice. So yeah, it's crazy. It's I know that might be kind of complex and thinking like that. And it might be different from somebody saying, well, I feel that when I put on a pair of ballet shoes. But you know what I'm saying? When it comes to tap dance, yeah, that's the journey I've been on with it. That's the journey of responsibility that I've had to bear ever since I was 3 years old. And that's the reason why I got into it, because I wanted that challenge. I wanted that onus. And, I'm here for it. I'm not backing down from that mountain. And there's no way to get to the top. You always keep climbing.
Yeah.
But that's why I love it so much.
Well, it's certainly chosen you, and doing a fantastic job with it in Funny Girl. So amazing work. Thank you, Jared, for sitting down with me. If you're out
Thank
there,
you.
make sure you keep in touch with Gold Derby throughout this Broadway season. And Jared, thank you again.
Thank you so much.